better check for pose. You better check for pose. You better check for
JR dead on that.
all the best all in the blind spot that we don't see. Wipe the dirt.
It was earlier tonight. I don't.
She went to the 13th birthday party. She was happy that we were all together.
She wanted to walk the rest of the way.
You will hurt the ones that love you, and they will hurt you right back. Sing along, sing along. Our love is a heart attack. You better check the pulse.
The decision was made about 4 days ago.
The decision to take the death penalty off the table in exchange for Christopher Watt's guilty plea to all 9 counts he was originally charged with, including first-degree murder of a child under 12, tampering with a deceased body, and unlawful termination of a pregnancy.
The Watts family murders. This is undoubtedly one of the most horrific crime stories of our era. Over 5 years has passed, and with each passing year, with each passing day, nothing about this case becomes more clear. Looking back on the investigation of this case and the prosecution of Chris Watts, you have to ask yourself, was anything ever meant to be clear? Was justice ever meant to be achieved?
Oh, good girl. Oh, I love it. Good job. High five, baby.
I want to stay with her. Don't kick her away.
By the time you are done watching this video, you're going to understand that something very wrong happened in the initial hasty investigation of this case. A case so horrific, the whole world began watching right away because the whole world wanted to know, how could a seemingly loving father do something so horrible? The very family members who trusted him, who counted on him, who relied on him. Meet District Attorney Michael Rourke. This is the man who accepted lip service as answers about this horrible crime that people to this day still cannot wrap their heads around.
Stop asking about it. She didn't have anything to do with it. She wasn't there that morning. She voluntarily cooperated with law enforcement. She provided us all the information. I'm not going to tell you where she's at. Stop. Leave me alone.
Welcome, everybody, or welcome back to Watts the Obsession True Crime. I am so glad that you guys are here with us tonight, and it is December 30th, my birthday, turning 47 today. Thank you guys so much for being here. The last 4 years, I've done a live stream on my birthday, and it is my favorite way to spend my birthday with you guys, all of the amazing people who are part of this channel community. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome, everybody who has come in. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And welcome, Andrea. I said hello to most of you. I'm just going to hit the people I didn't already say hello to while we were waiting to get in here. So hello, Kimberly Reeves. Welcome. It's great to see you. And let's see. MLZW1W. Did I get that? It says, oh, hi, everyone. Wishing everyone a blessed new year, 2026. Greetings from sunny Florida. We're in a cold front right now, up to 44 degrees. Oh, my gosh. It has been snowing and snowing and snowing since the day after Christmas here, like crazy. Actually, my entire town was shut down for like 3 days. It was pretty crazy. Hey, Tommy, welcome. How are you doing? Nice to see you. And I think, and Anna Flex, all of our wonderful moderators, thank you guys so much for being here. Hello, Shay, how are you doing? Welcome, my friend. Great to see you. Red Sonia, welcome. Great to see you as well. It's been a while. Hey, Julie, great to see you. First live. Awesome. I'm so glad you could make it. Hey, Paula Betancourt, welcome. How are you doing? Hello from California. That's where Anna Flex is joining us from as well. And Michelle, welcome from Australia. We have a couple others from Australia. I know McJay was in here earlier, also coming from Australia. Love the intro. Thank you so much. Urban Moving System Limited 5982. So glad you are here with us tonight. And welcome to everybody who's coming in. If I didn't say hello, and hey, Karen G, it's always wonderful to see you. Say hello. I will try to say hello back. If I didn't catch you specifically, please don't take it personally. It's just because, I'm getting older. My eyes just ain't what they used to be. Honey Bun, my girl, has been a member for 34 months. Happy birthday, friend. You are one of a kind and love your work. Oh, thank you so much, sweetheart. And I'm so glad you're here. Hey, Alice in Wonderland, how are you doing? Yeah, and happy almost New Year's to all of you. I hope that the new year to come is the best of your life for each and every one of you. You totally deserve it. And hello, Angela's Creative Space. Great name. I love that. Hey, Cat Bowling. Welcome. How are you doing? Oh, hey, it's Cuff You here. I'm so glad you're able to spend time with your friends or with your family. Cuff You. That's absolutely amazing. Make sure you enjoy them and just love those beautiful little grandbabies to pieces. Hey, Zena222. Welcome. How are you doing? So this evening, we are going to be talking about the Watts case, and we are going to be talking about the criminal file that we have been compiling on Chris Watts' former mistress, Nicole Kessinger. We are also going to take a listen to District Attorney Rourke's appearance on his wife's podcast back in April of 2023. So many people have been asking to hear this through and through a little more clearly all together. This podcast, I've been keeping my eye on it since I noticed it. And I noticed that there was an episode called, what was it called? Vicarious Prosecutorial Trauma with the Honorable Michael J. Rourke. That was the name of it. It is episode number 9 or 10 of the podcast Survivor's Guide to True Crime, which is created and produced by Michael Rourke's very own loving wife, Kimberly, and a friend of hers named Kara. And we are definitely going to be take a listen to that. Get ready to be enraged. And yes, please don't forget to hit the like. Welcome to everybody who's coming in. Please say hello. Let us know where you're coming from, where you're watching from. So glad you're here tonight. Kevin, Suspicious, some of my friends that I guilted into coming in to the live stream tonight. I'm like, it's my birthday. You got to come tonight. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you guys so very much. So is everyone ready for a great 2026? You guys getting ready for it? Do you have your New Year's resolutions all set up? Do you guys do New Year's resolutions? Or are you just, living life day by day kind of person? Put a 1 in chat if you do the New Year's resolution thing, and put a 2 in chat if you tend to not do the New Year's resolution thing. Yeah, stay warm, everyone. I'm hearing that. Woo! I just went out to get some pizza for myself and my son earlier. It is so cold out there. It was a whopping 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Hey, welcome from, hello from, whoa, chat just scoot a little fast for me. Mississippi, welcome. So glad that you're here. Thanks for being here tonight. Hey, kind Colorado does the New Year's resolutions. Anaphylaxis is taking it day by day. You got it down. You got it down, Pat. Anaphylaxis. You don't need any New Year's resolutions. You're perfect in my book. Hi from PA. I lived in Philadelphia for about 20 years. What part of Pennsylvania are you from? Let's see. Lots of no New Year's resolutions. Oh, negative 38 Celsius. I wonder what that is in Fahrenheit. I'm going to have to get my Fahrenheit Celsius converter out and see how cold that is. It sounds pretty damn cold. So let's get right into it. We are going to take a look at, over the years, I have created a number of videos about the Watts case. We're talking in the hundreds, as many of you know. And a lot of them have been focused on Chris Watts' former mistress, Nicole Kessinger's part in this crime that has very much been unexplored, unfortunately. And we'll talk about that in a number of different ways as we go through this content. So I kind of pulled it all together for you so we can touch on all of the pieces of evidence that have been found that incriminate this woman, Nicole Kessinger, very much so, in being a part of this crime, whether it's before, during, or after the fact. I will let you decide, but let's start by taking a look. Oh, Greeley, Colorado. Sorry, that caught my eye. You're right in the epicenter of the Watts case, right? Michelle, welcome. How are you doing? From Greeley, Colorado. Do people still talk about this case in Greeley, Colorado, Michelle? I'm so very curious. That's right. Kevin is also from PA. That's right. That's right. So welcome to everybody who's coming in. Please do the YouTube thing. Hit like. I'm so glad you guys are here. If you're just coming in, please say hello. Let us know where you are watching from. Hey, Claudia, it's great to see you, my friend. So one of the most important things that we can talk about when we're talking about Nicole Kessinger is that she absolutely unequivocally knew that Shanann Watts was pregnant with child, and not only with child, but with Chris Watts' child from before the day that Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger claim that they started dating. So let's just get right into it by taking a look at that. Hopefully I'm going to pick the right one here. Welcome back to Watts, The Obsession. This video is going to talk about Chris Watts and the tragic event of the Watts family annihilation. We're going to take a look at some aspect of Chris Watts' relationship with his mistress, Nicole Kessinger. And that specifically is, did she know that Shanann was pregnant? And this is a really big deal in this case. First, let's just listen to a little soundbite of Nicole Kessinger's interview with the Colorado Bureau of Investigations agent Kevin Kobach on August 19th, 2018.
So,
like all of it.
Because we don't have it on tape, we discussed prior to turning the tape on Tuesday, which would have been the 14th of August, you had read some newspaper articles on the 13th and the 14th that regarded this case. You had also had a conversation with Chris at some point during the day on Monday. And on Tuesday, because of what you found, specifically what you said was, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but you found out that his wife was pregnant.
Yes.
And you did not know that prior. And you found that out via the newspaper articles, and that caused you concern.
Well, I just realized that he was lying to me, and I was like, well, if you can lie to me about this, what else are you lying to me about? And it made me realize that maybe his wife was in danger at that point, and it was day two, and she still wasn't home.
What did that cause you to do with your phone, though?
Oh, what? When I deleted those? I was just kind of grossed out by him, to be honest with you. I was just like, I don't know what's going on right now, but you just lied to me, and I don't want to see this come over my phone anymore. So I removed it.
So as you heard right there, right out of the horse's mouth, she says that the reason that she deleted all of the text messages between herself and Chris Watts and anything else that had to do with Chris Watts, including his contact information, off of her phone the day after the murders of Shanann Watts, Bella Watts, and Celeste Watts is because she found out the day after the murders that Chris Watts' wife, Shanann Watts, was 15 weeks pregnant. As you heard, she said that she found that out by reading the newspaper. Now, that's not the only time that she denied knowing that Shanann was pregnant throughout the relationship she had with Chris Watts, which apparently was about a 6-week relationship that started in June and ended, well, when Chris Watts' family was murdered, perhaps with the help of another person.
And you said earlier you did not know she was pregnant until reading the newspaper.
Yep.
So that never came up in any conversation. There was no indications that was going on.
None.
He never hinted to anything like
Nothing.
that. As far as you knew, he was just leaving her. He had 2 children, and that was the final take on that.
Yes. I know why he lied to me. He lied to me because if I'd have known that he had a child on the way, I'd have never wasted my time with him in the first place. Like, none of this would have ever even occurred if he would have just told me the truth.
Not only does Kessinger double down on the fact that she didn't know that Shanann Watts was pregnant in this interview, she triples down on it. Listen to this.
So you guys never had a conversation about the child, period.
I didn't know
Okay.
at all.
All right. And by your words, if you did know, you would have ended the relationship.
Well, because it wouldn't have made sense to me that he's like, I'm getting separated. Oh, by the way, I have a baby on the way. It's like,
that's 15 weeks.
You are a liar. You're just trying to sleep with me. That's what I would have probably interpreted that as, and I'd have just shut that off at work, and that would have been the end of it.
Okay. All right. We can move past that.
Now, you may have heard me before talk about this, that the very first item in the official discovery timeline is this. On September 1st, 2017, Kessinger searched the internet for the name Shanann Watts. Now, September 1st, 2017 is about 9 months before Chris Watts and Kessinger say they started dating. I think it's significant that the very first item on that discovery timeline is Kessinger's search for Shanann Watts. Clearly, the author of this part of the discovery found that to be incredibly significant towards the crime of the murders of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. Now, the second item on the timeline is this. On May 29th, 2018, Shanann began filming in the kitchen of 2825 Saratoga Trail. She stepped in front of the camera briefly to show her shirt that was embossed with the words, "Oops, we did it again." When she stepped out of the camera's view, Dieter, the family dog, ran off to welcome Watts entering the home. As Watts walked into the kitchen, he halted in mid-stride and stared in Shanann's direction. His confused expression transformed into a grin, and he walked to her saying, "We did it again." When Watts returned in view of the camera, he is holding a pregnancy test, and they discussed the positive result. Watts leaned in, kissed Shanann, and with a large grin says, "I guess when you want to, it happens. Wow." And then it is noted, 76 days later, Shanann, her unborn child, Bella, and Celeste were murdered. So, being the first two events on the official discovery timeline, they both must be significant. Now, how are they connected? We know that Nicole Kessinger knew Shanann Watts was pregnant from the very beginning of their relationship, perhaps before they even started really talking, or at least communicating outside of just seeing one another.
And on
crap, I hate when that happens. Damn StreamYard. Okay. So I just want to make a point of that. On the official discovery timeline, the very first item is Nicole Kessinger's search for Shanann Watts in September of 2017. So this is about 9 months before Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger even maintained that they started dating. Okay. So first item is Nicole Kessinger's search for Shanann Watts. Second item is the detective narrating about how Chris Watts found out that Shanann was pregnant. He's talking about that video where Shanann showed him the shirt. Oops, we did it again. And that's how he learned about the pregnancy. Third item on the official discovery timeline is that, I think it's 41 days later, something like that. I'll check that in a moment. The family was murdered. So I feel as though those three items need to be very strongly connected in the mind of the most dedicated detective on this case. Now, just please forgive me for a moment where I find our place. There it is, I think. Second item on the timeline is this. On May 29th, 2018, Shanann began filming in the kitchen of 2825 Saratoga Trail. She stepped in front of the camera briefly to show her shirt that was embossed with the words, "Oops, we did it again." When she stepped out of the camera's view, Dieter, the family dog, ran off to welcome Watts entering the home. As Watts walked into the kitchen, he halted in mid-stride and stared in Shanann's direction. His confused expression transformed into a grin, and he walked to her saying, "We did it again." When Watts returned in view of the camera, he is holding a pregnancy test, and they discussed the positive result. Watts leaned in, kissed Shanann, and with a large grin says, "I guess when you want to, it happens. Wow." And then it is noted, 76 days later, Shanann, her unborn child, Bella, and Celeste were murdered. So, being the first two events on the official discovery timeline, they both must be significant. Now, how are they connected? We know that Nicole Kessinger knew Shanann Watts was pregnant from the very beginning of their relationship, perhaps before they even started really talking or at least communicating outside of just seeing one another at work. We know that Nicole Kessinger had a prolific history of Google searching Shanann Watts and other things about her relationship with Chris. These items appear throughout the discovery timeline and are mentioned in the discovery. In fact, 2 days, well, about a day and a half really, before the murders, there's an entry in the discovery timeline that indicates after Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger returned home from their date dinner at a place called the Lazy Dog Restaurant, she Googled the names Shanann Watts, Chris Watts, Ronnie Watts, and that's Chris's dad, in 2825 Saratoga Trail. That is the Watts residence. So there is absolutely no doubt that Nicole Kessinger knew that Shanann was pregnant. And how do we know that? Well, let me explain this to you. Shanann Watts started posting about her pregnancy June 9th, 2017. She posted about her pregnancy on June 10th, 11th, and 12th. Now, the timing here is very, very important. Pay careful attention. The first email communication between Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger happens on when? June 12th. Again, Shanann posted about her pregnancy for the first time on June 9th. And the first communication between Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger is on June 12th, 2018. In fact, on June 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2018, on each of those days, there was a video posted to Facebook about Shanann's pregnancy. She was very excited. The video that shows Shanann telling Chris Watts about the pregnancy was posted on June 11th, 2018.
We did it. I like that shirt.
Just the chest.
That's awesome. Guess when you want to, it happens.
Guess what, girls? Guess what? Zizi? There's a baby in mommy's belly.
Mommy, your buddy.
It's in mommy's belly, you silly.
This isn't my baby.
We go for our first ultrasound at 3-ish, 3:15. Hey, Bella, how many babies do I have in my belly?
5.
Whoa.
Whoa.
That's a lot of babies.
It certainly is a coincidence that the first time Shanann posted about her pregnancy was on June 9th. Then again on the 10th, 11th, and 12th. And the first communication between Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger is on June 12th. In the discovery, the supervisor Anandarko that reported these emails said that these were the only email exchanges he could find between Kessinger and Chris Watts. So on the 12th, Nicole Kessinger kind of nudges Chris Watts through email by addressing his entire team with this email. Kessinger says, "Gentlemen, I spoke with my gas monitor vendor regarding your app access. Our account has been reset. Please continue to use the same credentials you were provided upon receiving your unit. Let me know if you continue to have issues or require anything further. Best regards, Nikki Kessinger." There are a total of 6 emails between Kessinger and Watts, and it is only on this day did the supervisor Anandarko find any email exchanges between the two. Nicole Kessinger says, "Chris, thank you for being honest with me this morning. Truthfulness is so underrated in our culture. Saludos cordiales, Nikki." You have to wonder what she's referring to. What was he being truthful about on June 12th, 2018? So there you have it. According to the timeline presented by Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger knew, absolutely knew, Shanann Watts was pregnant the entire time, which means her basis for stating why she deleted all of the texts and all the information off her phone that had to do with Chris or was from Chris is absolute bullshit. So why did she really do it? Now, there is a page in the discovery that I just noticed recently. It's from supplement number 34, and it says this: "Documents obtained so far in the investigation produce an estimated beginning date of an intimate relationship evidenced by written communications, Christopher Watts and Nicole Kessinger, on or about June 8th, 2018. As a result, your is seeking a production of records with a reasonable time span of approximately 2 weeks prior to said date or May 25th, 2018 until the verified date of recovery of bodies or August 15th, 2018. So this is of course in regards to the apprehension of the phone records, and based on the timing of the beginning of their relationship, they're setting a certain date of when they want the beginning of those phone records. It says June 8th. So I wonder what's up with that. Just something more for us to investigate. It seems a little strange that, somebody would get the date wrong when they're recording this for the official record on this note that's in the discovery. What do you think about that? So let's just listen to the rest of Nicole Kessinger's statement, her first statement about finding out Shanann Watts was pregnant on August 14th, 2018, the day after the murders, while she was reading the newspaper.
So you already said, but you removed text messages?
I deleted all of his stuff because he lied to me. I mean, that's what it was. It was the hurt that made me delete it. And then it was the lie that made me start questioning everything else he'd been telling me for the last few days.
And that's when you decided to come forward?
Yes.
Okay. So just for context,
yes.
When people delete stuff off phones, usually we go, hold on a second.
No, it wasn't malicious at all. It wasn't malicious at all. He lied to me. It just hurt. Like, I had never felt like he'd ever lied to me before. And it was a big lie. I mean, telling somebody that you're in the midst of a divorce and then you have a wife that has a 15-week-old baby on the way is a huge, huge thing. And I was very taken back, and it was hurt. And so at that point, I deleted it. I had a few more quick things to say to him, and then I just got rid of him. That's literally what I did. I just cut him out of my life. It would have honestly been like a bad breakup kind of thing. Like, if none of this other stuff would have happened, that's what it would have been. That would have been.
Every time she says that, it just gets to me. It just would have been like a bad breakup kind of thing. If none of this other stuff, if this didn't happen, like if there weren't, the murder of 4 people, if all that extra didn't happen, it just would have been like a bad breakup. Like,
the end of it.
That was the end of that anyway, with a sickening statement from Nicole Kessinger. Yeah, if it wasn't all for all that, extra murder stuff, it just would have been like a bad breakup. It's just so callous. Hey, Alyssa Morales, it's great to see you. Welcome. We just started. You got here just in time. All right. So, talking about, somebody earlier, I think it was Tommy Girl, a couple other people said, mostly what they know about the incriminating evidence against Nicole Kessinger is her 6:16 a.m. ping in Frederick, Colorado, which is where the Watts lived. Well, let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into the nature of that ping, because over the years of researching this, investigating, and getting experts to weigh in on the phone ping, we've been able to learn a lot more about it. Welcome back to Survivor's Guide to True Crime. I'm Kim. I'm sorry. We're not ready for that yet. We're going to listen to that towards the end. That's going to be when District Attorney Rourke makes an appearance on his wife's podcast, Survivor's Guide to True Crime. And that is very interesting. We're going to listen to it in its entirety, at least the part about the Watts case, breaking it up quite a bit because they do like to throw out those copyright strikes. Got to scoot past this music because YouTube changed its music copyright license laws, regulations, whatever we're governed by.
Of discovery that Weld County released to those who requested the discovery file. Nicole Kessinger's phone records from July 13th to August 13th appeared in the discovery. It was only a couple months later that we found those who requested the discovery file got a rendition of the discovery file that no longer included those phone records from July 13th to August 13th, which really, those are the relevant phone records that anyone would want to see when parsing through this case. After August 13th, really the only interesting things that happened on Nicole Kessinger's cell phone were her searches asking if police could find deleted text messages and some other shady things. Because remember, or if you don't know this, let me tell you, that Nicole Kessinger deleted all of her text messages and any interaction record that existed on her phone between herself and Chris Watts. Apparently, she did this on Tuesday, August 14th, and she says that's because she just learned on that day that Chris Watts' beautiful wife, Shanann Watts, was pregnant, was 15 weeks pregnant. Now, that comes into major question, but that's a whole different topic, a whole different ballgame, and I've covered that in other videos and just might have to cover it again. So as we do look at the phone records from July 13th to August 13th, we see that Nicole Kessinger's phone pinged in Frederick, Colorado, a total of, well, 3 times in that time period. We also have a record that her phone pinged in Frederick, Colorado on July 4th, which I'm just going to set that to the side for now because it's not within that July 13th to August 13th timeframe I'm talking about, but she and Chris Watts both acknowledged that she was in Frederick, Colorado on July 4th. So when we're looking at the 3 Frederick, Colorado pings in that July 13th to August 13th timeframe, one was on July 14th. And this is also a day that Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger both agree that she was in Frederick, Colorado. Now, in my opinion, July 14th was an absolutely pivotal day in this case, and I believe this is the day when Chris Watts started putting the plan into motion. This was the day when, after one of their outings, I believe they went to the Mustang Museum, they went back to Chris Watts' house, and on this day, Nicole Kessinger claims that the dog Dieter strong-armed her into going upstairs where she saw a picture of Shanann and one of the girls. And she claims on that day, she started questioning Chris as to why he's not staying with his wife. She even went so far as to assert that she encouraged him, starting on this day, to stay with his wife. Now, one of my favorite comments that people leave on my channel is, said no side piece ever. I really do agree with that. The other time, or the second time of the third, when we're talking about the pings on Nicole Kessinger's cell phone in Frederick, Colorado, from July 13th to August 13th, is on July 18th. Now, this ping was actually initiated from Chris Watts' phone. He was also in Frederick, Colorado on that day, and he was calling Nicole Kessinger. I think she was kind of like, hanging around there. There was some story told about getting touch-up paint for her car that was perhaps picked up on that day. So of all of the pings from Nicole Kessinger's cell phone from July 14th to August 13th, the third time that she pinged in Frederick, Colorado was on the morning of August 13th at 6:16 a.m. This is a critical time because this would be right around the time, a little bit after the time that Chris Watts left his driveway after we saw, based on the security camera footage from neighbor Nate's security camera, that he had been packing his car for about half an hour, and then he took off heading to Survey 319, where later that week, the bodies of his beautiful wife, Shanann, 15 weeks pregnant, his daughter, Bella, and his daughter, Cece, were found. Now, these pings happened. They were real. This issue has been put to rest, and I'm showing you the evidence right here on this video. So guys, please, please take a look at everything that is available. think for yourself and don't ever just believe one source when it comes to critical information regarding this case or any other. You always have to ask yourself, who has an agenda and what exactly is that agenda? You know what I'm saying?
In case you still have any doubt regarding the phone ping, I'm going to break it down a little more for you to show you exactly why Nicole Kessinger's phone ping in Frederick, Colorado at 6:16 on August 13th means that she was right near 2825 Saratoga Trail, the residence of the Watts family. Okay, so here we have Saratoga Trail. Then we have where the Frederick Tower was. These two locations are very close. Now, guys, I want you to know that I was able to get the record and maps of the towers at the time of this tragedy in August 13th, 2018. And the towers that I have depicted on my visuals are towers that service Verizon, which was a carrier Kessinger was using. Okay, so down here where the little red marker is, that's Kessinger's residence. So her route to work up in Platteville is as shown over to the right up to Platteville. Takes a total of 33 minutes. You'll see right about in the middle of that map, you'll see Frederick, okay? Now what we're doing, guys, is we're zooming in to this full route, 33-minute route map, okay? All right, so here it is. So you see next to this highway here, I have all these pictures of super cool Kessinger at the sand dunes. So that's just indicating that's her route going, you know, from the bottom of the screen upwards. Now you see over to the right, there's 1, 2, 3 towers with the pink arrows pointed towards them. Each of these 3 towers service Verizon, and they have bandwidths that are strong enough for sure to be favorable to pick up a signal of somebody traveling on this highway. The bandwidth probably is such for the highway traffic. Now you see the red arrow, the large red arrow here points to the tower that she pinged off of, okay? So just imagine Kessinger traveling along this highway that's highlighted in green right next to her picture. Just look at the distance of a car traveling on that highway, the distance from that car to the Frederick Tower or that car to any one of the towers to the right. The distance of the towers on the right is a lot less with a strong enough bandwidth than the distance of somebody traveling on that highway to the Frederick Tower. So what this tells me, really beyond a shadow of a doubt, is that she was right in the vicinity of 2825 Saratoga Trail. So now let's move on to the 111-minute phone call and NK's personal timeline from that Sunday night, August 12th, into the morning of August 13th and into later that day, Monday, August 13th. So, you know, as I looked through all of Kessinger's phone bills, her phone bill from the dates of July 14th through August 13th, you know, what I did was I looked at the longest call on each of these, you know, pages of her phone bill. So I just want to note that the 111-minute phone call was really out of character for their conversations. This wasn't their normal pattern of talking to each other. So I went through and I looked at the longest phone call that NK held on each of these pages and the longest phone call that she had with Watts on each of these pages. And we find that, other than the 111-minute phone call, guys, the next 3 longest calls lasted 51 minutes, 52 minutes, and 54 minutes, respectively. So you see, that's a really long phone call. We could probably say, because there's only a short period of time that we don't have their phone records,
according to when they say their relationship was occurring, it's probably safe to say that was the longest phone call that they ever had. So even when you look at this all ping information, this little, unofficial timeline here, we see that their 111-minute phone call, pointed to by this big red arrow, starts at 9:28 that Sunday evening, August 12th, and it ends at 11:19. There's no activity on NK's phone until the 6:16 a.m. ping the morning of August 13th, we see right here, when she had a 1-minute phone call to her friend Jim, is highlighted in yellow. The next activity, guys, on her phone was not until 2:28 p.m. And that call was initiated in Platteville. That's where she works. And again, this is a very unusual pattern for NK to not have any activity on her phone throughout the whole day. So now I also told you guys that the 111-minute phone call was conspicuously missing from the official discovery timeline. So just let me show you what I mean here. So here you see this is the official redacted discovery. So you see right here in the middle of the page begins August 13th. Well, if you just go up a little bit, you're going into August 12th. Now, I want you to see how they included like everything that happened on August 12th. Everything that Chris Watts did on August 12th is in this discovery. Look at this, is a lot of information as compared to the other dates in the official timeline in the discovery. It's like 5 or 6 pages long, okay? So look, August 12th starts right here. We have everything that Watts did starting at 7:32 a.m. that morning, okay? So now if we go back down, or up or down, I'm scrolling down, but we're going up in time, right? We get to the evening. So at 21:13, so that would be at 9:13. We see that Shanann sent a message to Addie explaining things. At 21:29, which is 9:29, we have Shanann made an unanswered call to Watts. Well, the reason that likely is, my friends, is because a minute before that, at 9:28, or in military time, 21:28, that's when that 111-minute phone call began. There is no mention of that phone call here in the official discovery. I just find that to be a conspicuously missing piece of information. So I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions about that. I'd be interested to know what you think about that. I mean, every piece of information that man did that day, other than this phone call, is here on Discovery.
So let's hear what Chris Watts and his former mistress, Nicole Kessinger, have to say about that 111-minute phone conversation that was much longer than any other phone conversation they had ever had. Notice how they use a lot of the same language.
What were you talking to Nikki about before your wife got home?
Before she got home?
You talked for like several hours.
I think our day, we talk a lot. Just conversations, and just random conversations. We talk a lot.
Does Nikki know about any of this? Seriously?
Well, she doesn't know, like, I mean, she knows, like, from the news.
The meat of this whole
Let's get
situation.
to the phone call on Saturday from 9 to 11. What did you guys, or pardon me, on Sunday from 9 to 11?
Yeah, we talked a few times. So, Sunday, I think so. I need to think. I can't even think.
Take a couple breaths and take a second.
Sunday night. I don't even know. I don't think I was like concerned about anything at that point.
You guys had a meal, a nice meal the night before. You knew his wife was probably coming home late that evening.
Oh, you know what? I still don't remember what we talked about. Honestly, we talk about so much random stuff. Like, it's so hard to pinpoint some of these things. I don't remember what we talked about. I do remember that was a long phone conversation, though. We probably talked about all sorts of stuff.
And notice how she's like sniffling here, because when Kevin Kobach asked her directly about the 111-minute phone call for the first time, that's when she broke out in her first tears everywhere. And unfortunately for her, he redirected her right back to that question. And of course, she doesn't know anything about it.
One thing I do remember, though, that I didn't remember earlier when I was talking to Mark, so this is like where I'm starting to remember like little bits and pieces. I don't remember, yeah, I know. So the phone conversation, I don't remember what was in the phone conversation. Probably nothing of relevance, to be honest with you, but usually he talks to me when he's like down in the basement in his bed before he goes to bed and before I go to bed. And I could hear the TV on, which I thought was kind of weird. I didn't ask him, I just heard it in the background. And I remember thinking, and it was like right before we got off the phone, I was like, why the hell is he up? And there's like no TV downstairs. So I was like, well, maybe, I don't know.
So no TV in the basement where he usually calls you from?
Yeah, and I don't know how many TVs they have. Like, I've never.
So as you heard, guys, both Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger, wrote off that question, what was said in that 2-hour conversation by saying, I don't know, it's just a bunch of random stuff. We just talk a lot, can't even remember. And Nicole Kessinger somehow diverted Kevin Kobach into, talking about the television situation in the Watts residence. It was totally ridiculous. So what's up with that? So you see, guys, here's the picture. The reason Nicole Kessinger is so suspicious is due to her deleting messages, breaking her SIM card, lying about why she did that, lying about knowing that Chris Watts' wife, Shanann, was 15 weeks pregnant, and a whole host of other things. The 6:16 a.m. ping, the 111-minute phone call the night before, well, actually, the time during which Shanann Watts was supposed to be returning home to her husband, the phone call that was longer than any call they had had before, at 11:25 on neighbor Nate's security camera footage. You see headlights driving by the Watts house. That's right after their phone call. I didn't even include that in this video. We can talk about that another time. And then after that 111-minute phone call, no activity on her phone until the 6:16 a.m. ping that I showed you was right near the Watts residence. And then after that 6:16 a.m. ping, no activity on her phone until 2:38 p.m., which is totally unusual for Miss Kessinger. And she has no alibi for that morning. There's no record of her punching into work, only punching out. So guys, seriously, what's up? Okay, so now talking about the headlights and another couple things that I mentioned during that video, but I didn't hit on specifically because that video was specifically looking at the, the dynamics of her phone records. I'm going to bring this into the stream. So this is going to look at a whole host of other suspicious things that were found in the investigation, but that weren't fully investigated as far as finding complete justice for Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and unborn baby Nico. Unfortunately, you are going to have to put on your thinking caps and pay very careful attention here because this evidence is really quite a big deal. The obsession. So many of you know, probably most of you know, about the 6:16 a.m. ping that registered on Chris Watts' mistress's phone, Nicole Kessinger's phone, on August 13th, 2018. That is the morning of the Watts family tragedy. That is the morning when Chris Watts' family was annihilated by himself and perhaps with the help of another. And one of the things that makes many people believe there was help from another is the 6:16 a.m. phone ping from Nicole Kessinger's phone that happened with, according to the experts who have weighed in with Watts the Obsession, within under 300 to 400 yards from 2825 Saratoga Trail, the address of the Watts family's residence. And although this is compelling evidence towards the possibility or probability or definitive understanding that Nicole Kessinger was a criminal part of this tragedy, we must remember that 6:16 a.m. phone ping is not the only piece of evidence, even just from the discovery around the time of the murders, that is highly incriminating towards Nicole Kessinger. And at the very least, makes one ask, was somebody else, anybody else there with Chris Watts when this tragedy happened? Among those pieces of evidence that we can look to and we will cover in this video are the Vivint alerts, the home router's phone log for the Watts family at 2825 Saratoga Trail, and a mysterious vehicle that was captured on neighbor Nate's security camera footage right after the 111-minute phone call between Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger ended. Regarding the Watts family's home router log of devices that connected to it, I'm just going to read through some interesting information, and we're going to give it a little more context when we talk about neighbor Nate's security camera footage in just a moment. So on Sunday, 8/12, the day before the murders, at 12:15 p.m., Chris' personal phone connects to the home router. It does not connect again until 9 o'clock and 45 seconds p.m. And many people say, well, this means Chris Watts didn't get home until 9 p.m., giving evidence in their minds that after he took Bella and Celeste to the birthday party at the Lindstrom's house, he went somewhere else and not just home, perhaps out to Survey 319 then. I'm not sure if I believe that is what it means because, quite honestly, I don't understand enough about when and why a device connects to a specific router. But again, we're going to get into more detail on that in just a moment. And then again, at 11:20 p.m., twice, 11:20 and 35 seconds, and then 36 seconds, Chris's personal phone connects to the home router. And this is just 2 minutes after the 111-minute phone conversation between he and Nicole Kessinger ends. We then see that Chris's personal phone connects to the home router at the following times: 1:11 a.m., 1:32 a.m., 1:35 a.m. Then Shanann's personal phone connects with the Watts family home router when she arrives home at 1:48 a.m. after Nicole Utoff drops her off at her house. Then, very interestingly, at 5:25 a.m., an unknown Apple device connects to their home router at 5:25 a.m. That's interesting, right? So at 5:25 a.m., an unknown Apple device connects their home router. We kind of have to keep track of this information here, okay? Now, some people have suggested that unknown device might be Shanann's Apple Watch, but I don't think that's the case. First of all, because the authorities had the Apple Watch and would have known that's what it was. But we also have this, another instance of that unknown device connecting to the home router. So it's on Sunday, August 12th, the day before the murders. We have Chris Watts' work phone connecting to the home router at 9:26, 9:29, and again at 9:29. Then at 10:20 a.m., an unknown Apple device connects to the home router, and I believe it's the same device because it has the same MAC address. So on this day, Sunday, August 12th, in the morning, and just so you know, I later did confirm that that same address does indicate it is in fact the same device. I just didn't know that off the top of my head, but I asked somebody who does, and it's the same device. It should have only been Chris and the girls, Bella and Celeste, home by themselves. Nobody else was known to be in the house. So what is this unknown Apple device connecting to the Watts home router, and to whom does that device belong? Considering that that unknown device connected to the Watts home router at 5:25 a.m. on the morning of the murders at 5:25 a.m. on August 13th, 2018, let's take a look at Chris Watts' movements early that morning. So we can see by looking at this time log provided from Anadarko of the geotab information on Chris Watts' work truck that he starts his truck at 5:18 a.m. at 2825 Saratoga Trail. We then know that Chris Watts takes several trips back and forth to the house, loading his work truck with something and doing God knows what. We know this because we see this happening on Nate's security camera footage that the whole world has seen. Now, we also know from this information provided from Anadarko that Chris Watts leaves 2825 Saratoga Trail at 5:46 a.m. He then drives to Survey 319, arriving there at 6:53 a.m. So it is right between the times when Chris Watts starts his work truck at 5:18 a.m. and when he leaves his house at 5:46 a.m. does this unknown Apple device connect to the Watts home router. That really gives you something to think about now, doesn't it? So next, there's some interesting information about the Vivint home security alert system. Now, the Watts had sensors on all their garage doors, the door from the garage to the mudroom, the basement door, the back sliding door, the front door, and there were not any sensors on the windows. And as far as motion sensors go, so anytime a door was open or closed with those sensors on them that I just mentioned, an alert would go off. Motion sensors were located in the right-hand corner of the living room area and in the basement. And there were entrance access via key code on a keypad for the garage door and the front door. Now, the way that the system works is the Vivint logs events and it alerts when all doors are open. They have the sensors on them, as I mentioned. And it alerts if a door is not closed within a certain time frame that's been set on the control panel. And it logs all motion as an event. So when we look at the Vivint activity log for Monday, August 13th, we see at 1:48 a.m., Vivint logs Shanann opening the door. At 1:48 a.m., Vivint also logs motion happening in the living room. And it's not until 4:26 a.m. that Vivint logs the basement door opening. Inside, the garage door opens, and also there is motion in the living room. So from 1:48 a.m. to 4:26 a.m., there is no motion or doors opened logged in the Vivint security system alert system that Shanann and Chris receive on their phones. And obviously, Vivint can see when law enforcement requested that information. So the question is, if things happened even remotely like Chris Watts tells it, when exactly did he bring Shanann from the upstairs to the downstairs when he says that Bella was accompanying him and crying? When did the girls come from the upstairs to the downstairs? How did anything that we know happened in the house that day happen without the Vivint security home system detecting the motion that should have been detected as people were moving around within the house and opening and closing doors within the house and from inside the house to the outside? So now let's take a look at neighbor Nate's security camera footage. Actually, this is the perspective from Officer Coonrod's body cam video when he is over at Nate Trinistitch's house and Chris Watts is there. This is the day of the murders, August 13th, later in the day, when Chris has arrived home, Officer Coonrod has responded, and they're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Nate is showing Officer Coonrod this security camera footage, and he explains to Officer Coonrod that the security camera footage is motion triggered. So it is motion that starts the security camera to record. So that means whenever there is an image or some video recorded by Nate's security camera footage that was just shortly preceded by some kind of significant movement outside that caused the security camera to begin recording.
Is this on continually recording?
Yep. Well,
it's not. Is it motion or is it?
Event.
Okay, so it's motion.
Any motion event that happens, I get cars driving from this street, and this is him at 5:17.
While Nate is trying to find the security camera footage from the evening before in the early morning that day, He's flipping through some frames, and we can see this one frame that is labeled 11:25 p.m. that is just of headlights going by the Watts house, by Nate's security camera. So isn't that interesting? We can see here on this page from Discovery, these are the last hours of August 12, 2018, that Sunday night, that night of the 111-minute phone conversation, and that night where we see that image on Nate's security camera footage at 11:25 p.m. At 9:29, Shanann made an unanswered call to Chris Watts. Well, that call was unanswered, at least in part, because the 111-minute phone conversation went from 9:28 p.m. to 11:19 p.m. So interestingly, Shanann tried to call Chris Watts just 1 minute after he got on the phone with Nicole Kessinger. And then Shanann, during the phone call, also says, through a text, I tried to call you, giving you an update. And she's telling him that the plane is going to be significantly late. And then at 9:45, she sends a flight information. And it's not until Chris Watts gets off the phone call with Nicole Kessinger that ends at 11:19. At 11:21 p.m., 2 minutes later, Watts replies finally, "Holy crap, sorry, I pass out on the couch. That's going to be late." It is then 4 minutes later, after Chris Watts sends this text to Shanann, that we see this image from Nate's security camera footage of headlights at the Watts house. Whose headlights were those, and what was going on at the Watts house at that hour? Just 6 minutes after the 111-minute phone call ended.
What I've circled here in yellow is a screenshot of his security camera menu that is dated at 11:25 p.m. on Sunday, August 12th. And it shows headlights going by the Watts house. So that is most likely, based on what we know about how Nate's security camera works, what triggers it, and when it starts recording, we can safely deduct, I would say. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. I'd be happy to talk about it. Questioning things, you learn more about them. We think we can safely say it's that car going by that set off Nate's security camera. So there's a car going by at 11:25 p.m. So this is 6 minutes after his 111-minute phone call with
Nicole Kessinger ends. It is 4 minutes after he finally responds, after a couple hours, to Shanann saying, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be really late," lying, saying, "I fell asleep on the couch." And it's just really curious timing. We can see from the menu selection that Nate goes through the purview of Officer Coonrod's body cam footage, that the next event on his security camera footage menu is when Chris Watts starts to go out to his truck at 5:17 a.m. Now, I would just like to reiterate that it seems that as we look at the official Discovery timeline of events that happened in the investigation towards the murders of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste Watts, that Nicole Kessinger is being protected. Well, we do know that she's being protected because right away, on the first day of the investigation, the FBI has declared she is a protected witness. See, again, that is right here on FBI documentation. As I have noted before, Nicole Kessinger appears throughout the entire official Discovery timeline, all throughout it. In fact, the very first event on the official Discovery timeline is Nicole Kessinger texting the name Shanann Watts on September 1st, 2017, which is 9 months before Chris and Shanann claim to have met. Then all of a sudden, from Saturday evening, the evening of August 11th, until very late in the day, the evening of Monday, August 13th, many hours after the murders have occurred, for close to 48 hours, Nicole Kessinger is conspicuously missing. Any mentioning of her is conspicuously missing from the official discovery timeline. Even though during that time, there's a lot that happens with her, including the 111-minute phone conversation on Sunday evening and her 6:16 a.m. ping outside the Watts house on the morning of the murders. Okay, so, all right, so that is a lot of additional evidence that is incriminating towards Nicole Kessinger. A lot of things going on in the Watts house that cannot be explained around the time of the murders, around the time when we know that Shanann was in Arizona, that nobody was supposed to be in the house except for Chris Watts and his daughters, right? We have this device pinging or connecting to the Watts home router a couple of times. We have activity that's being picked up by their Vivint security system. We have these headlights appearing on Nate's security camera footage just moments after the 111-minute phone call was to be ended, when he ignored all those calls from Shanann. Obviously, Nicole Kessinger and Chris Watts, neither of them have any idea what was going on during that phone call conversation. When you put it all together, it is definitely very interesting. So who would be the person who would have been privy to all of this evidence, all of this information that we're looking at right now that clearly incriminates somebody in this horrific crime aside from Chris Watts? Well, of course, the answer to that question would be District Attorney Michael J. Rourke. Now, something that I didn't put content in for this live stream that is very interesting about Michael J. Rourke is that in the narrative, in the kind of prelude to the official discovery timeline, Detective Prill notes that he came across some files on Chris Watts' phone, and upon his own further investigation to the phone, he realized that the phone was not completely extracted the way that it should be, that the forensic download didn't quite do its job. And he talks about, the technology that, scrapes these phones not being up to date with the most recent Apple technology because it's always moving forward so fast, right? And he says at the end of this memo, which is dated October 30th, 2018, that he is going to seek out another search warrant expediently to make sure that all of the devices that were searched in this investigation are searched completely, because he realized that they were not accessing the third-party apps that are underneath the surface of that phone, They weren't picked up when they did the forensic phone dump. Does that make sense? So what happens after that memo is released to Michael Rourke's office? It says at the end of the memo, the next place this is going is to Michael Rourke's office. Again, this is October 30th, 2018. Well, it is on November 2nd, just 2.5 days later, that Michael Rourke and his underling, Stephen Wren, get on a plane and head out to North Carolina, where they stay with the Rusick family for a couple of days and essentially convince the Rusick family to accept Chris Watts' plea deal, therefore taking the death penalty off the table. Interesting timing, isn't it? Do you think that for some reason, perhaps District Attorney Rourke did not want those phones thoroughly investigated? That he did not want that forensic dump to be complete? That he wanted to leave some critical information on the table, so to speak, that would not be part of the investigation? Well, let's listen to what District Attorney Rourke had to say for himself on his wife's podcast in April of 2023. This video is for entertainment purposes only, and I have made material changes to the content that we are about to watch. So any copyright strikes that could potentially be coming my way need not apply, because they will be reversed. I will fight them, and you will look stupid.
I'm Kara. Today is a very special episode. My husband's joining us.
Yeah.
Dear God.
Okay, so in all fairness, I only know the colloquial version of the Honorable Michael Rourke.
I don't know the original version. And so it was pretty fun to talk with him. And I was pleasantly surprised. He's going to listen to this and he's going to have something to say because that's his thing. But he's going to be like, what the hell, Kara? I was like, it's kind of like when we listen to ourselves and we're like, we're good at this. And I was like, he's good at this? What?
I can't say this to him or in front of him because his head will get bigger than it already is, but Mike is legitimately an expert in his field. He has been doing this for his entire career, and he is looked to nationwide as one of the leading experts as a trial lawyer.
So I think it's very interesting that he says that he is looked to nationwide as one of the leading experts as a trial attorney, yet less than 10% of his cases actually go to trial. I'm not sure how that math works out, but that's the math that they're math. And so, okay, let's just give him a pass for now.
So he has many, 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 many years of experience.
It's a reality of what we do. And I think that all, not just prosecutors, but law enforcement will tell you, just like you talked about, Kara, we do the best when we are emotionally invested. We have made a connection with the victim's family, and we are trying our level best to hold somebody accountable for what had happened to that family.
Hey, Kara, did you know that April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month? Yes, of course you did.
Obviously, I knew that. But did you know that it's also Adaptogen April?
Say what?
Do you know what an adaptogen is, Kim?
I understand all of those words separately.
So adaptogen.
I left their stupid little commercial in here because during this podcast, and I didn't record this part because I had to be careful how much I actually played for you guys anyway, for reasons just stated. They are completely dogging on people making podcasts and having YouTube channels or, doing any kind of media that is making money off of true crime. I mean, in fact, they're absolutely disgusted about it. They're like throwing up during their podcast about, oh, these people are so horrible. I can't believe that people would make money off of death and murder and true crime. Yet right in the middle of their podcast here is a shamelessly self-promoting money-making commercial.
Are essentially some type of compound botanical that goes into your body and helps your body deal with stress. It's non-toxic, non-specific, and normalizing. So what it does is it helps regulate your stress hormones and helps you adapt to stress.
I have some of that, the stress.
Yeah. The good news is that Cured, almost all of their products have adaptogens. So it's Adaptogen April, and they are really doing a push on education around adaptogens. And it is genuinely something that makes them extra amazing. My favorite products with adaptogens are the Rise, the Zen, and the Aura, but they are also in the Serenity gummies. That's the ashwagandha that you see there. So if that sounds like something you would like to try, head on over to curednutrition.com. Use code KARA10 at checkout to get an extra,
so much fun,
like the real unhinged Tara.
So there you heard, I just left it in there again so you could understand that there was a real full-length commercial right in the middle of their podcast when they were talking about how disgusting it is that people dare to make money talking about such egregious crimes. Interesting, right?
Dactyl laughing and me just saying all kinds of weird things that Kim sometimes cuts into episodes. If you like those little kind of things, then you're going to like our Patreon.
But you also get bonus content, early access, and news. And the input that we get from our Patreons really shapes what we are doing with this show. So if you're interested, please join us over on Patreon.
You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/SGTC for Survivor.
All right, of course, and now they're promoting their Patreon where they have merch and all. Okay, so sorry to include all of that, but yeah. And welcome to everybody who's coming in. Please hit the like. So glad you guys are here. I'm reading all your comments. Thank you for being here. Please let us know where you're watching from, and yeah, join in on the conversation.
Survivor's Guide to True Crime.
And you can find that on our website.
Oh, and real quick, what we're listening to right now is Michael J. Rourke on his wife's podcast, A Survivor's Guide to True Crime, from April of 2023.
Or in the show notes.
So on that note, I would assume that being open to being emotionally involved in cases means that you also have cases which have impacted you, have been especially memorable for certain reasons. So one case in particular, I know a lot of people are going to know. So I want you to talk about it because it's one of your most memorable cases.
Just don't make me say his name.
All right.
Because I refuse to do that. I refer to this now as the Frederick homicide case, triple homicide.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to get dates wrong because apparently I just can't remember dates anymore.
You have a lot to remember, in all fairness.
Like the amount that you do remember.
Yeah.
And dun dun dun, here he is, Michael J. Rourke. I'm sorry, I have to stop this every now and then so I don't get the confirmation, you know.
You have a 25-year career here, so it's okay. And honestly, I don't think that it is necessary to say offenders' names most of the time, because I think that too much focus is placed on that. You know, it's the case of the, Zodiac killer, or whatever. We know these names. We know Ted Bundy, but we don't know the victims' names. And I think that that's something that media gets wrong. And I understand why it happens. So we're in full support of that mentality.
And there's the No Notoriety campaign. We can include a link to that as well. I mean, and sometimes it's important to have the public safety if you're like looking for someone or something. But once that person is on trial, convicted, whatever it might be, you don't have to use their name anymore. You really don't. It's not worth it.
You notice I just did that a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's Janelle's case.
Yeah.
It's not that other guy's name.
No.
Anyway, the Frederick triple murder happened in August of 2018. And it started off with not a lot of notoriety. And really what the long and the short of it was Shanann had gone on a work trip to Phoenix with some of her colleagues. She came home from the airport the night of August 13th of 2018. And we know now had a discussion with the defendant about their marital future. In the very early morning hours of her return from the airport, she and her 4-year-old and 3-year-old daughter go missing. The defendant, I'm going to continue to refer to him as the defendant, is one of the first, but not the first, to call law enforcement to notify them of their disappearance. He is seen through local media channels standing on his front porch, begging and pleading, and I put that in air quotes, for them to be returned safely, trying to find information, wanting them back, talking about how difficult it is to sleep and to eat, knowing that they have disappeared. And it struck particularly our experienced law enforcement agents very oddly. And
it struck me oddly. I'm watching it happen on the news, and I don't know if it was live or just like the next segment.
Right.
And you got home in the middle of it. I remember I'm standing at the back of the couch. I was like, oh, he did it. There was nothing there.
Within a couple of days, he is brought into the Frederick Police Department, is interviewed by detectives and agents from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. And after a few hours of some very good interrogation, ultimately admits that he is responsible for their death. During the course of that interview, he shows on overhead diagrams where his family is now buried. It's an oil battery site down in the south part of Weld County. And for those who don't know what an oil battery site is, in rural Colorado and parts of this country, you'll see the oil tanks just kind of out in the middle of a field somewhere. It'll have a dirt road leading to it. There'll be some other smaller equipment there, but that is basically either an oil storage facility or an active natural gas drill site. He describes to law enforcement that
And if you want to know more about how those oil batteries and those oil sites work, we have a few live streams on this channel with our very own resident oil field expert, Kevin, who is also a moderator for the channels, and chat with us tonight, who has been working basically the same job that Chris Watts had and knows all of the ins and outs of the oil field. So you can go and search for that content. Really great information. And thank you, Kevin, for everything you do and for that.
in these 2 oil tanks that you can see at this battery, he has put his one daughter, Bella, in one, Celeste in the other, and then Shanann is buried in a shallow grave, and she's pregnant at the time with her son, Nico, is buried in a shallow grave 50, 75 yards off of this dirt road. Some incredible law enforcement agents from Frederick Police, CBI, hazmat teams from the Colorado State Patrol, local oil and gas employees go out to that site the next morning at daybreak, because this is after dark, but he's describing this. And they go through the arduous task of having to drain those oil tanks to see if they can find the remains of these 2 little girls. And ultimately they did. They found Shanann's remains in a very shallow grave, just as the defendant describes it. And we know at this point we have a triple murder. And unfortunately in Colorado, there's not a recognition by way of victim for the unborn child. But we do have a murder of a pregnant woman, which ultimately the defendant was charged with, as well as these 3 murders. This immediately, for a variety of reasons, gained national, international attention. We started getting emails of support or demanding justice from all over the country. I remember getting emails as far away as South Africa, Scotland, New Zealand, all over Europe. A lot.
And I wonder why that is, Rourke. I wonder why there were emails coming from all over the world demanding justice for this case. And he's going to say in a little while, the most recent emails that he had received demanding investigation into Nicole Kessinger, he says he'd received just a week before this episode was recorded.
Lot from the United Kingdom, like I said. And so we have the burden now at this point, like I said, 2018 on the elected district attorney of deciding whether or not to seek the death penalty for this particular defendant. Knowing that working its way through the legislature is going to be a bill to eliminate the death penalty for consideration in the state of Colorado. But I wanted to make sure that we were doing the right thing for Shanann's family. And so Steve Wren, my chief deputy, and I flew to North Carolina and went to Shanann's parents.
And let me just make the point again that I just explained the timing of that to you. It was when Michael Prill discovered that there was a lot more in the phones than they had discovered on the initial forensic dump on October 30th, 2018, and said that he was going to be immediately seeking another search warrant to completely investigate all of the phones that were involved in this investigation. That Stephen Wren and Michael Rourke on a plane 2.5 days later and flew out to North Carolina to stay with Shanann's family and to convince them to accept a plea deal, therefore taking the death penalty off the table and foregoing a trial. Interesting timing? I think so.
Parents' house to sit down with them in their living room to talk to them about the process, what they wanted to see happen, the realities of death penalty litigation in Colorado. And that's just not something you could have a conversation over the phone about. Ultimately, the outcome of that was a split. I mean, one parent wanted the death penalty. The other, Shanann's father, wanted us to make sure that this.
And I just want to point out here that the split he got wrong when he first explained this. He reversed the roles of the parent who wanted the death penalty and who did not. I think if you're going to talk about this, being it's such a sensitive case and that you are, so close to these victims' family members, get the fucking facts straight, Rourke.
Defendant never saw the light of day, and ultimately he did plead guilty to everything we charged him with in exchange for not seeking the death penalty. A decision that, in hindsight, I'm very comfortable with because about 6 months later, the legislature eliminated the death penalty from the state of Colorado, and our governor commuted the sentences of those on death row to life without parole. And so we were able to obtain that swift and certain sentence for her family without having to go through protracted litigation, only to have a governor come in unilaterally and say, never mind, we're going to eliminate the death penalty. But you want me to talk about the part that really bothers me, and so I will.
So it's always just interesting. And I think that this is probably true for anyone listening. When you have people telling a story like this, that they have firsthand experience, they're telling you one thing, and I'm sitting here hearing your words, but going through all the memories that I have of either you coming home as soon as he confessed and tears in your eyes saying he did it, to all the other things that were happening behind the scenes that people never see because they're not on a headline. And it took us a while to get here, but that's what we think is important for you to talk about.
This is the case that caused me to realize that secondary or vicarious trauma in prosecutors is a real thing and something that we have to talk about and we have to address. And we can't just say, go back to work and everything will be okay. One night while we were working through this case, I had brought my laptop home like I always do. And I remember looking at you saying, if I'm going to make a decision about whether or not to subject someone to the ultimate penalty, I've got to look at everything. And I had intentionally not looked at crime scene photos. I wasn't there. I made the choice not to go down there when they recovered the remains. I hadn't looked at them.
What made you decide not to do that at that time?
I think without recognizing it, I think that there was the recognition that I couldn't or I shouldn't for my own well-being. Mm-hmm. I think part of it was respect for those victims. They didn't need onlookers there that didn't need to be there. But I think that part of it simply was, I don't need to see that. I know what I've seen enough deceased people in my life. I didn't need to see that. I didn't need to see children.
Yeah. Tell us more about why you felt that you didn't need to see that.
Sure. I think, well, I'll be candid.
Yeah, because you found out that you really didn't need to see that, right?
Oh, yeah. I found out the hard way. Bella and Celeste were, like I said, 3 and 4-year-old little girls with very long, glowing blonde hair who
So we heard out of his own mouth, he didn't even look at the crime scene photos. And now he is characterizing Bella and Celeste as being 3 and 4-year-old little girls with long, flowing, blonde hair.
Like to run around the living room, dance, sing, and do cartwheels. We knew that because we had some social media posts that Shanann had put on her Facebook page or Instagram, one of them. And so I watched those and I saw those little girls.
So yes, we are all equally as disgusted as the next person that he characterized them as being little girls with long, flowing, glowing blonde hair doing cartwheels in the living room, because they did not have long, flowing, glowing blonde hair, and they were not physically able to do cartwheels in the living room. So District Attorney Rourke, you are getting a lot of critical facts about the victims and their family members wrong here, and you probably should have just kept your mouth shut. It's disgusting.
And my own daughter at the time was about that same age. Long blonde hair, doing cartwheels in my living room, despite the fact she knows that's a family rule not to. And there was an immediate connection that I felt with those little girls because of my daughter. I couldn't go watch them be extricated from a oil tank, soaked in oil, not knowing at that point in time whether they were alive or dead when they were put in that tank. The hole at the top of the tank that those little girls were put in was 8 inches in diameter. Stop and think about that for a minute, and think about the size of a 3 and a 4-year-old and how those bodies get in an 8-inch diameter hole. That piece of shit shoved them in those holes. I didn't need to see that. I couldn't see that. So back to the night where I come home from work, I know that we're contemplating seeking the death penalty. And as the elected DA, that's my decision. That's not anybody else's. I'm going through a process of talking to law enforcement, community leaders, my own commissioners for budget reasons, her family, like I have talked about, senior leadership in my office, and my wife, because there's a recognition that this is the ultimate decision I have to make. I'm going to take somebody's life if litigation goes the way it should in this case. And I can't make that decision without seeing the impact of what he had done. And so I opened up my computer one night, sitting on the couch in our living room, watching my daughter over here playing on the living room floor. And I opened up, I maybe got 5 or 6 pictures in, and I'll never forget them. They are burned in my brain. And it was like I blacked out. I had to stop. And I looked at Kim and I said, I can't do this. That's when vicarious trauma became a real thing.
I'll never forget. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor. So we have a coffee table and I was working on something on the computer and I knew that that's what he was doing. So it's like our computers the backs of them are facing each other. And I saw his face just, I still have a hard time recalling that in anything than less than perfect detail, because it was just watching every fiber shift in you, and it became part of you and who you are and what you do, and it doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it hasn't gone away to this day.
Mm-mm. But of course, that's not what you were going to talk about when you have a press conference or when people are doing.
I love that, all the emotion is about, her memory of seeing him so upset about this when he cannot now even recall the details of the victims or their family members correctly. And he not only did he not go to the crime scene, he didn't see the crime scene photos. The woman talking is his wife. It's her podcast.
Podcasts on it or whatever else. But that's what I remember.
You'll remember this part too. And this is the part that has never happened before. After the defendant pled guilty, we had set for a sentencing hearing because I knew that her family wanted to be present. And I wanted to make sure that we were being articulate, respectful, complete, because our community didn't know what had happened from a detail standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't know the answer to some of the questions that I just had thrown out there. They didn't know much of anything. And I knew with all the attention that this was garnered that I was going to have to get up and reveal to the world the details that we had kept out of the media for reasons that are unique to prosecutors. I can't talk about pending cases to the media. I won't do it. And so I had two of my more senior attorneys, Steve, who I talked about, who went to North Carolina with me, Rob Miller, who's my assistant DA, and Kim and I sat in my basement and spent 3.5 hours working through exactly what a sentencing argument was going to look like so that we could, A, do justice to the vileness of what this piece of shit did, but do it in a way that was respectful and would be hopefully well received by the community.
I remember sitting there, we were throwing questions at you too, as if it's like a press event afterwards, just so that you wouldn't get super emotional and you felt like you were doing the family and the victims justice. Yeah, that was something.
So that, for those who haven't heard about that case before, don't spend a lot of time looking at it because it ruins your conscience.
Yeah.
But it was one that changed who I was as a prosecutor. I think changed this community. It certainly changed law enforcement. We lost an incredible detective from law enforcement because that was the straw that broke his back. He had to retire from law enforcement because of that case, plus some others that he had worked on. And I remember doing an interview with the Denver Post, and ultimately what I said became the headline, right, wrong, or indifferent. But I said that case changed all of us, and it did. From that day forward, I have recognized and tried to implement in our office and on a statewide basis wellness programs for prosecutors because those didn't exist. Today, it exists in maybe a third of the offices. We have finally created a very good peer support program in our office. We have recognized that this isn't just something that is felt by the prosecutors who are standing up in front of a jury, but it's felt by our investigators, by our victim advocates, notably by our secretaries, who have to look at those files and read these reports all day, every day, and they don't have an outlet for it. They don't get to stand up in front of a jury and pound on a table and thunder away about what the defendant had done. They have to take that stuff home. And so the recognition is that all of us involved in this process, from law enforcement to the secretaries at law enforcement, victim advocates, up through our prosecutors, are all impacted by the horrifying things that people do to one another.
So, to your comfort level, all of that happened, the sentencing hearing, you have all of the media coverage. And, this is one thing we talk about with true crime sleuths, is that they'll want to go on and play detective from home. And Shanann's entire profile is all...
Well, that's what happens when the people who are charged with investigating and prosecuting a case don't do it properly. Those armchair detectives from home want to sit around and sleuth and get it right because we actually care about justice for victims.
Public. And so you have countless hours of videos, pictures, posts, nuances, all kinds of things that they can go through, and they feel like they are part of the case. When that happens, what does that do? I mean, to you as the prosecutor or the head of the office, what are some things that people who are...
I'll tell you what it does. It exposes all of the work that he did not do at all, did in a very shady manner, or rigged to have an outcome that best fit his political interests rather than justice for the victims. That's what it does. And that's why you're so disgusted by it, wifey.
We're constantly doing this can take away from it.
That happened, like I said, August 13th of 2018. It is now early 2023. Every single day since that homicide, Shanann's family has been tortured, re-victimized, traumatized by producers who want to do Lifetime movies and by reporters who want to scoop the rest of the country by getting...
How about by district attorneys that can't get it right as to which parent did or did not want the death penalty and characterizes their grandchildren who were murdered by their father and the husband of their daughter as having long, glowing, flowing blonde hair and doing cartwheels in the living room when those girls were and did anything but. Is that re-victimizing, Mr. Rourke?
A soundbite from Shanann's mom to foreign, again in air quotes, journalists who have on a daily basis, and I don't even call them journalists, have all of those kinds of things. The demand from the public, once his case was resolved, for open and complete access, either through Criminal Justice Records Act, FOIA requests. In Colorado, it's called the Colorado Open Records Act, was crushing. I have an office of 80 employees worldwide of this horrific crime that I have described.
I wish I could say that's surprising, but I think one of the things that compels people with crimes like this, and I think true crime in general, is they see a crime like this and they go, how on earth does someone do something so heinous?
Cooperated with law enforcement. She provided us all the information. I'm not going to tell you where she's at. Stop. Leave me alone.
Spoken like a real public servant, dedicated to his constituents.
Because ultimately, she is a victim in ways as well. So
right.
Leave her the hell alone. Like,
That's right.
I mean, leave y'all alone about it. Leave her alone. And I mean, one of the things that I have heard someone say before in reference to people who commit these kinds of heinous crimes is, at the end of the day, you may say that this person went through something in their childhood that loaded the gun, or maybe they have some sort of mental imbalance or illness that loads the gun. But at the end of the day, he decided to pull the trigger metaphorically, and it's no one's fault but his. So that's all there is to it.
And he was interviewed after he was sentenced, after he was sent out of state to the Department of Corrections. My detective from Frederick and CBI agent went out to interview him, talking about why this happened. Why did you do this? And out of his own mouth, again, was a very clear affirmation of what he had done, in what order he had done things, some of the horrific details that we don't need to go into.
And that's why I found it important to ask you to speak on this, because
Sure.
You know, one of the things that we forget so often in true crime, which is one of the reasons Kim and I wanted to do this podcast, is that there are people at the heart of these stories that we hear, you know, that you want to investigate at home. There are actual humans that this is the worst day of their life, but then there's this ripple effect where there's all of these other people that were impacted. And I think it's so important
into the whole story of, you know, District Attorney Rourke met his wife, whose podcast this is, along with her friend, when she was the victim of a violent crime, and he prosecuted the case. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you guys heard those words straight from District Attorney Rourke's mouth. And hey, Kind Colorado, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, it really is some disgusting stuff. Oh, hey, and I also want to let you guys know that, I've been doing, you know, What's the Obsession? We have a Patreon now. We've had it for I don't know, a few months now. And I do some exclusives over there. And guys, I just want you to know, it's really not to exclude anybody or anything like that. We're doing a Patreon talking about the Nicole Kessinger, Oxy, Chris Watts issue that this channel, it has some exclusive information on that I simply can't talk about on YouTube. It's been batted down time and time again. I have to make it for Patreon members only. That's just how I can do it. We're going to do that not tomorrow night, but the night of January 1st at 9 p.m. We'll be doing that live stream. It's almost, and here's a link to our Patreon if you'd like to check it out. I also really would just appreciate you supporting the channel. It's a great way to support the channel. We have case files over there, exclusive content, and things like that. And it's also just a great way to support the channel. And so thank you so much. Thank you very much, Patreon members. I really appreciate y'all. Yeah, I just can't talk about it on YouTube. It gets taken down immediately every time I try. So, hey, Maya Rodriguez Sorensen, how are you doing? It's great to see you, my friend. Oh, gosh, we really could have just used your legal advice and your feedback. We just listened to District Attorney Michael J. Rourke speaking about the Watts case and his wife's podcast, The Survivor's Guide to True Crime. So let me give that podcast its due credit for whatever it's worth. Yeah. So I know every time I hear him talk about that, you know, I really am just absolutely disgusted by it. So now I am going to have to end this pretty quickly, and I hate to do so abruptly, but it's my birthday. If some of you guys figured that out. And my son and I, we have an ice cream cake. We haven't had our birthday cake yet. So I have to go have birthday cake with my son before my birthday is no longer my birthday. So I feel like I'm cutting off pretty quick here. I'm so sorry to do that. I really don't want to do that to you guys. I'm reading all of your chats. I really appreciate your input and everything you have to say on this issue. Very insightful. And I just think his treatment of this case has been disgusting. And I think, you know, particularly in light what we have been able to find out, just through our investigative efforts on this channel, I think there was a very good chance that this case could possibly be. I'm not saying that Chris Watts' conviction should be overturned by any means. I do not believe that. Bastard is in prison where he belongs for the rest of his life. There's no doubt about that. I 100% believe in his guilt. Absolutely, I do. But I think to get complete justice for the victims, this case does need to be reinvestigated. Aspects of it do. And I do believe that there is an opportunity for that to happen. District Attorney Rourke will be serving his last year as District Attorney of Weld County, 2028. You know, in a couple of days, it's going to be 2026. It doesn't seem so far away anymore. So we will continue to talk about the injustices in this case, at least as we perceive them allegedly or so-called. But I think we've put forth a great deal of evidence showing that those statements are very, very well supported. So, hey, Calissa, nice to see you. So guys, thanks so much for being here. Thank you for caring about justice for the victims. I'm planning on doing a live stream on YouTube tomorrow night. Aw, so glad you're here, Suspicious. We have to catch up soon. And then we'll be doing the Patreon live on the evening of the 1st. And I love y'all. Remember, life is hard, so please be good to each other. Mostly be good to yourself because gosh darn it, you deserve it, y'all. You're amazing. You so deserve it. Do something great for yourself tomorrow.
Here we go once again for a marriage lightning man. Don't you worry, it's gonna be alright. 'Cause I'm the judge and jury, and we'll be up all night. You better check for pose. You better check for pose. You better check for
They are dead on that.
all the bad things love can bring. All in the blind spot that we don't see. Wipe the dirt.
It was earlier tonight. I don't.
It's 13th, she had her 13th birthday party. She was happy that we were all together.
She wanted to walk the rest of the way.
You will hurt the ones that love you, and they will hurt you right back. Sing along, sing along. Our love is a heart attack. You better check the ball.